All right, Max, what are we reviewing today? And anyone else watching this? Today we got Redbone. The subtitle is going to be too long for the video, so I'm not going to include it, but it's the true story of a Native American rock band. It's by Christian Staebler, Sonia, Paoloni, and Thibault Balahy. Apologies again for any mispronunciations. This is a cool book. I'm not a huge music guy, which is always the least popular thing to say. So I just am incredibly out of tune, out of touch with pretty much everything musical outside of POD, my favorite band, and Weird Al, and a few others. But this was a really cool book. I was actually reading in an airport while going through customs coming to France or whatever, and somebody saw me reading it and obviously was a music junkie because he's like, oh, is that about Redbone? Like, he just saw the book open but must have recognized kind of this iconic look. There's, this extremely popular Native American rock band that formed, which if you don't know their music, again, I just don't know music well, but they kind of blew up or maybe became the most popular in modern day from Guardians of the Galaxy, the "Come and Get Your Love," which is I think one of their like huge centerpieces. But anyway, so this is like a cool story about the history of the band. We'll jump into my patent pending system. How did it do? So first off, for characters, you get a ton about the brothers, Pat and Lolly, and like basically you see there's just a ton of fraternity in the pages of this book. Like, it's cool seeing the band literally come together. It's cool learning about the various characters, like backstories. You see a lot of them in childhood and see how their like families how their families influence and like kind of gear them towards these musical careers. There's a cool childhood chapter actually at the back too, which is like kind of the ordering is interesting. And the way the book is structured around the characters, you're getting like different slices of like important people or events for the band per chapter. Like it's nicely structured, and they definitely pepper in like a good amount of detail about the characters. Like a good example here was one of the characters meets a pretty girl at the bar in one of the places they're playing, and it turns out that person had a wife and they were like almost hunted down because of this. So you get some definite characters in this story. You get some I really like them. There's also like little subtle things all throughout. Like a lot of the conversation they're having is like at a restaurant, and there's like little subtle things too where there's like racist kind of patrons of the restaurant making like allusions. I'm never gonna get good at this. Like at some of the staff that's working there, who are Native American. So they have like lots of little things there that I think add to the feeling of like a very real story on the character side. I think like I think that and I'll get to this a little bit more later. I think maybe could have been a little bit stronger just in maybe like they sort of hold the characters very much in like they're telling a biographical, not a biographical, but they're really trying to tell this like history of a band story. So they're almost like telling it like a documentary. Like there are a ton of human moments, and I love how they draw a lot of how they draw the characters, facial expressions and such. But they almost hold you a little bit, I don't want to say at a distance, but a little bit at a distance. They could have maybe like let you feel like you developed with the characters a little bit more by like injecting some more emotion in it. It's very hard to it's a little hard to describe, but it's like some books, they really want you to almost like step in the shoes of the main character, and I find that very compelling. This one very much is, you kind of know who's safe and who's not because of the very people telling the story, and that they're successful. So a lot of it is more again like you're watching a documentary, which I find just makes it a little harder to connect to them, but still, a strong character score. In terms of the art, I also gave it a 6. I've showed a bunch of pages already, but they're very creative. Like there's like different formats. Like you can see here, like it's like an old school comic booky vibe. They do like just like interesting stuff. Like I showed some of these pictures where they'll deliberately like I think do like only parts of people's faces at points. Every page, like this whole page is just yellow. The other one's almost like black and white. So you get like color throughout it, but like it's just so deliberate. Like I do really like how this looks. And again, there's a couple of these moments where of like because of how the characters like look, the mean facial expressions they might have had, you come back to a little bit again, like kind of like old school comic booky vibes here. So I thought the art was also a strong score. Didn't like do something absolutely revolutionary or like have scenes where it was like 100% drawing me in. I think again, maybe this is I've said this in many times. It's the most subjective, maybe the art score, and I think this is above average for sure. I really liked it, but the ones that really knock my socks off almost are like less literal and like take some even riskier moves, but I still really liked how it looked, and I love the color. I thought very creative. History culture, a strong 7. I mean, this is got to be the perfect book if you like music and you're like interested learning about various important like moments in Native American history. You touch on a lot of different things in this book. I'll try to quickly flip and find some of these, but you know they they talk on yes, they talk on this like schools for education for Native Americans in like Carlisle. And I've learned about these in various different things. Super controversial. There's some, there's like a good Radiolab podcast about kind of how there were some people that saw a lot of pros from these things, like helped, like for instance, craft football teams of Native Americans that beat all white teams, that really sort of showed that there's not some racial inferiority. Like they were, in some sense, maybe trying to do some good things. And obviously, at the same time, this book highlights all of like some probably many atrocities that could have been connected to such schools. So they touch on these kinds of moments. They also touch on like some big activist moments and groups, events like Wounded Knee. I'm not going to ruin everything by walking through it, but just showing you how like connected they were to some of these movements for rights or for protesting around Native American groups. And like the fact that they got in trouble for some of it, like this Wounded Knee incident sort of like broke up the band, cost some of them the career. I think you get like a very, again, from the minor aggressions of like, saying mean things to the wait staff to like systematic structures that were producing pain for these communities. I think you get like a very interesting snapshot, and obviously then like of just like the music and how it was interwoven in the culture, and overall also just like music industry in general. Like I think that this is like outside of just the people, it's like also like I don't know a lot about how the music industry works. It reminded me a little of reading Tetris, which is a totally different book, obviously, and about Russia in the 80s, like and 90s releasing this game, but it showed you a big part of the gaming industry and how that worked, which is surprisingly legal outside of the technical parts of making a game. So I thought this did a great job like running through like what it's like being an American band at this time. Readability, this was again maybe the lower part for me. Again, I think like there were deliberate choices to make this more of like a documentary style book. I think if I were to compare it against, like, I really liked the Elvis movie that came out, which was, again, very much a story interlaced with, white and black racial identities in America at the time, and that whole story. And then this central character who's a musician, but they made it so, I feel like they just did such a good job drawing you into the emotional turmoil of this person's life and like the stakes of it in a way that it's just hard to do with a documentary style format. So I definitely didn't like read through this all in a single sitting, because like it just didn't have that sense of like emotional heightedness, like what's gonna happen next, like, you know, I'm worried about this guy or whatever. Even though obviously you know the story of like Elvis or Johnny Cash in some sense, like again that was a good movie as well. I thought about his life, but like so I feel like maybe again that hurt the readability to me. But if you like music in general, and specifically if you already know who Redbone is and are interested, I feel like this is going to be so readable. Again, also if I'm nitpicking, maybe a little bit too wordsy, that obviously hurts readability a bit. But it's not an overly long book. It's like 150 pages, so it's not like a horrible score. I just don't think that was like its biggest strength. And for the X Factor, I gave it a 5. I thought it was unique to touch on, again, music. I haven't read a lot of these graphic novels which touch on history and culture that are so squarely in the music regime. So I really like that. And I think that like I showed a bunch of the pages already, but I think how they structured the book itself took some cool risks and did some cool, did some cool moves, like having some pages look like old school comic books, and just like the interesting ways for drawing the faces. Again, this reminds me of like probably the closest analogy I could make to this book for like the kind of interesting feel, and it reminds me a bit of Dragon Hoops, which I loved. Where again, if you wanted to try to get a friend interested in graphic novels, and that's not normally their bag, but they love rock and roll, they love music, this is like a great introduction. Just like people that might be really into sports would like love Dragon Hoops, even if they never read comics. I feel like it's a very easy segue. So overall, strong score, give it a 5.6. Again, if you definitely check it out, especially if you're a music lover. And I'll continue my final shameless plugs. If you also have kids or know people with kids and they sometimes struggle to go to bed, I have my self-published book on Amazon, but I can't go to bed yet. Check it out. It's great. It's only $12. And yeah, if you have any graphic novels you think would be good to review for this channel, feel free to leave a comment for the 2 people watching this, which is great. Bye.